That is before the chamber. Good morning, Senator Osten.
Good morning, Madam President. I figured we would be here until early or later in the night, and I think we have at least another hour, maybe two, that we will be here for. So I want to thank everybody that's had an opportunity to speak here today to talk about the issues that we have in front of us, and I will have some questions for Senator Winfield in particular for legislative intent. But first I want to talk about the journey that I have had as we have started as a state to deal with this very important issue that we have in front of us today. A number of months ago, maybe it was only a number of weeks ago, we started having protests or rallies, people talking about what they were seeing going on. And these protests or rallies were happening in a district that I represent that had never before seen anything like this at all, ever. I've gone to Juneteenth events since before I was an elected official, and I have gone to Martin Luther King marches since before I was an elected official, and we never had more than 15 or 20 people come to any of these events. And even though the city of Norwich, which I represent, is about 50% minority-based, people did not show up to express interest or concern or anything else. And I always knew the reason why we had Juneteenth and Martin Luther King was for Jackie Owens. She was a small woman, small in stature, but large in heart. A woman that would never let anyone forget what was going on. When she sat in a room, you knew she was there. And she cared more about the young people than ever anybody else. And I was in awe of her power. She was someone that I miss today because I would like to hear her counsel on where we are and where we're going. So I went to some 15 different protests or rallies. I'm not certain they were protests. They were people getting together to express their concerns. And their concerns were valid. And the stories were hard to hear. And then I went and I saw every police department, met with every police chief to find out where they were and what they were doing. And then I met with resident troopers, because that's what I have in my district mostly, is resident troopers, and talked with them about where we were going with this legislation and what they were seeing as the things that did not work. Approximately 80% of this bill was agreed upon by everybody. There were no concerns about it. Someone would say maybe a tweak here or a tweak there. But generally what I heard was what many people that were here today talking said. This is already being done. It is already what our practice is. It is already what we see each and every day. And there were some things which had people very concerned. And so at some point during the last little bit of time, it became apparent that we were going to have a bill. And I would say that I disagree strongly with the fact that we did not follow a process. We could have done it in the same amount of time, but we did not follow that process. And I think that that has led to increased concerns by communities across this state, all communities across this state, some saying the bill doesn't go far enough, and some saying you're going to hurt my community and put me at risk. And I think that if we had followed the process, if we had dined to give people an opportunity to talk more about it, we could have still done this in the same amount of time. We would have brought more people along, and people would have been more comfortable with it. Instead, what we have been left with is a great divide where you are either for or against police, or you are racist, or you are not. And I disagree with that so profoundly that I can't begin to tell you how hurtful that is. Now, I've been told I don't show emotion. I'm often told that. I worked in a prison for 21 years, and if I haven't learned to disguise my emotions, then you don't know me. That is a part of the job that we all do in 21 years of working in a prison. And that's something that should be understood by people. That is my opinion. So I want to talk a little bit about the things that I would like to see for legislative intent. And through you, Madam President, I'd like to pose a question to Senator Winfield.
Senator Winfield, please prepare yourself. Senator Osten, please proceed.
Thank you very much, Madam President. First, let me thank you, Senator Winfield, for answering questions and talking with me. I know I also called Representative Staffstrom. I want to thank him publicly for answering questions and talking with me. I want to talk a little bit about qualified immunity. For legislative intent, in this current version of the bill on qualified immunity, is it a fact that police officers will still be covered in an action that comes against them vis-a-vis a lawsuit?
Senator Winfield.
Thank you, Madam President. That would be a correct understanding of the bill, through you, Madam President.
Senator Osten.
Thank you very much. One of the things that I had put in writing to you was about qualified immunity. It appears to me that in that writing that you have taken into consideration the concerns that were expressed and changed significantly from no coverage to coverage by for police officers through the municipalities' governmental immunity.
Senator Winfield.
Through you, Madam President, the coverage that we were just speaking about does come through the municipality for governmental immunity for the officer in question, through you, Madam President.
Senator Osten.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And through you again, Madam President, I have talked with the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, whose funding mechanism is CURMA. That's where they get most of their money from. That is an insurance component of their business. That is the organization which is going to cover officers under this section of qualified immunity. Would that be a fair statement? Through you, Madam President.
Senator Winfield.
Through you, Madam President, I believe that to be the case, but I am not an expert on that part of the issue. Through you, Madam President.
Senator Osten.
So when someone says that an officer is not covered and their house is at jeopardy or their children's college fund is at jeopardy, that would not be a true statement. Through you, Madam President.
Senator Winfield.
Through you, Madam President, to be completely accurate, I just want to, the way that this process works is the officer is covered by the municipality unless there's a trigger with the malicious, wanton, or willful act, at which point that would sever the officer from that coverage through you, Madam President.
Senator Osten.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Willful, wanton, and malicious, through you, Madam President, is under current law, is it not?
Senator Winfield.
Through you, Madam President, that would be accurate. Through you, Madam President.
Senator Osten.
Thank you very much. So there is not a change in that policy or practice or ruling. Willful, wanton, and malicious is what has been happening for decades. That always was in effect. If an officer acted in a willful, wanton, or malicious fashion, that particular officer was cut loose from coverage by whether it was qualified immunity or it was governmental insurance. Through you, Madam President.
Senator Winfield.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Yes, the senator is accurate. I was just trying to not later hear that I was not accurately reflecting what the legislation said. But yes, Senator Osten is correct. Through you, Madam President.
Senator Osten.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And through you, the reason why I want to make sure that people understand this is because I started my morning today at 7 o'clock meeting with the largest police department that is in my district. That would be the Norwich Police Department, and this is an area of which they were very concerned because I had 20% of the officers willing to walk out the door today if we passed this, thinking that that's what was going to happen. I want to make sure that people understand that officers are still protected against lawsuits, whether frivolous or not, because they could make a mistake and still have a lawsuit, and that lawsuit would still be covered. It's not all about just frivolous lawsuits. It's also about the fact that someone can make a mistake on a split-second decision that they make, and they do not have to worry about that. Through you, Madam President.
Senator Winfield.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. The officer would be covered, and there wouldn't be exposure for the officer. Through you, Madam President.
Senator Osten.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And through you, there is one change under qualified immunity that I think needs to be highlighted, and that change has to do with having a judgment made by a jury. Now, why was that decision made? Through you, Madam President.
Senator Winfield.
Through you, Madam President, I will have a hard time representing how the conversation happened. I know that, to be honest with you, I know this sounds crazy, but at this hour, I can't remember exactly how we came to that decision. I know there was a lot of conversation about whether or not there needed to be a jury and whether or not the court itself or the judge should just weigh in. And I'm sorry, it's been a long day, Madam President.
Senator Osten.
Thank you very much, Madam President. It's been a long few weeks. I would concur with that. That is one area of the law that I think needs to be changed, because I think that people believe that a jury will always rule one way, and that's not necessarily true. And I think sometimes that a judge makes just as good a decision. I believe judges have qualified immunity. Through you, Madam President.
Senator Winfield.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Judges are actors who do have qualified immunity or governmental immunity, depending on what you're talking about. Through you, Madam President.
Senator Osten.
Thank you very much. And so I would posit, Senator Winfield, that you take into consideration the difference between a decision by a judge and a decision by a jury, and consider that for possible change in the law should we come back in September or in the next regular session. Through you, Madam President.
Senator Winfield.
Through you, Madam President. Thank you, Madam President. What I would say to Senator Osten is that I would be open to having conversations about any part of this bill, but in direct response to her question, I would be open to the conversation.
Senator Osten.
Thank you very much, Madam President. So I would like to move on from qualified immunity. I think you've heard about qualified immunity from every single one of us today on this, but those are my concerns, and I'm happy that police officers can feel comfortable that they will be covered by the insurance that represents that particular police department, whether self-insured or a KERMA product. I'd like to talk a little bit about the FOIA exemption of personnel records and disciplinary actions. And we had a collective bargaining agreement that we passed through this General Assembly, not even, I don't even think it was a year ago at this point. And my question on this is, why was the intention to go against a current collective bargaining agreement in the one that we passed on not a bipartisan basis, because collective bargaining agreements are usually passed by the majority party and not by the minority party, although I'd like to see them come together on that. But why was that removed, through you, Madam President?
Senator Winfield.
Thank you, Madam President. And I will ask a question for clarification, because I was looking for the section while you were speaking. Is the question, why does this section effectively reverse what we did when we voted on a collective bargaining agreement?
Senator Osten.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I'm asking, why are we reversing a decision that we just made a little bit ago in a negotiated collective bargaining agreement, through you, Madam President?
Senator Winfield.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I think that how this conversation comes up, it comes from, as I believe Senator Osten knows, from several sources concerned about the inability to see the disciplinary records. And though the decision was recently made, the level of conversation around this issue, particularly given the powers that police have here in the state police, was enough that it made it into the conversation about police accountability and made its way into the bill through the conversations we had with the chairs and ranking members and several other of the people who were involved in the conversation, through you, Madam President.
Senator Osten.
Thank you very much, Madam President, and through you. Are you aware where this particular contract measure came from, through you, Madam President?
Senator Winfield.
I'm not sure what I'm being asked. Am I aware what generated the? I'm not. Could you please rephrase the question?
Senator Osten.
I keep forgetting that it's later at night. I'm sorry. Through you, Madam President, do you know where the idea of this section in the collective bargaining agreement came from when it was originally negotiated and before it ever came before this General Assembly? Through you, Madam President.
Senator Winfield.
Through you, Madam President, I know that it's been represented to me that it is at least highly similar to what UConn has in its faculty contract. I would say that's what's been represented to me at this point, through you, Madam President.
Senator Osten.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And through you, in the interest of fairness, are you willing to in the next legislative session or in the next specialist session, look to remove the FOI exemption from all contracts rather than just singling out one group? Through you, Madam President.
Senator Winfield.
Through you, Madam President, I think that's a very large conversation. I would engage in the conversation. I think if we are in the next session, not the potential September special session, any of us could put that forward. I don't know, standing here right now, if that's something that I would ultimately vote for, but I would engage in the conversation. I think that's the best representation of the position I would take on that issue, through you, Madam President.
Senator Osten.
Thank you very much, Madam President. So in eastern Connecticut right now, there's a large debate going on in the town of Stonington because the personnel records of a teacher who was there, I think he was a coach, had been not viewed by the public, had been hidden from the public because it was a personnel matter and they did not want to have it done. And that man ultimately has been accused of several cases of sexual abuse. Are we willing to hide those cases? That would be a question that I would want to understand, if that we're willing to hide those cases, but we're not, I don't think we should hide any cases, but I believe in the collective bargaining process, and this was a collective bargaining issue. So if we are willing to hide those cases, that makes no sense to me. This is, to me, a bad practice of violating a collective bargaining agreement, and I believe I posited to you a possibility of doing this on a prospective basis. Ultimately, it was chosen to do it on a retrospective basis, of which I'm willing to accept if we are willing to then hold other people accountable for their personnel records. Through you, Madam President.
Senator Winfield.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm not sure exactly what the question. So I know you talked about Eastern, Senator Osten, you talked about Eastern. I'm assuming you mean Eastern Connecticut State University. No? So apparently I'm not understanding what you're saying to me. So if you could clarify, that would be useful.
Senator Osten.
Thank you very much, Madam President. In Eastern Connecticut, we have had a spate of teachers or people working in school systems who have been found to have committed acts of sexual abuse or sexual harassment within the school systems. In more than one case, the personnel records of those particular people have been hidden from the view of the public, and by that keeps those acts hidden from the view and not held accountable. I posit that all personnel records or disciplinary actions should be available for viewing if we're going to make this particular action available for viewing. Through you, Madam President.
Senator Winfield.
Thank you, Madam President. As I said, I guess I probably have an unsatisfactory answer there, but I don't know the circumstances there. I don't know how they came to have, if they have an exclusion. I don't know any of the circumstances there. I would engage in a conversation, but I think it's difficult for me to represent a position I would take, given that I don't actually know the circumstances in Eastern Connecticut with the teachers and how they got there, and if it's very similar to what we're talking about here. So the best that I can do standing here right now is to say that, as is my nature, I would engage in that conversation, and if it's a similar situation, I would first, this good senator knows the situation better than me, listen to what she has to say on the subject, and be transparent about what my position would be there. Through you, Madam President.
Senator Osten.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And through you, so essentially what I'm saying is what is good for one is good for all. And if we're going to make it a policy that these records are available for public viewing, then all records like this should be available for public viewing. And I don't need you to speak on that. That's just my position. I would just like you to know very firmly what my position is. Through you, Madam President, there were several sections that needed some clarification, and I believe that many of them have been clarified. But for the record, when we were talking, Section 6 talked about crowd management, and in the original proposal or the original bill, there were certain immunities that were extended to state police, and as I was meeting with municipal police, they said if we're not going to get the same immunities, why would we bother to participate in crowd management? I believe that this has been rectified in the bill that we talk about today. Through you, Madam President, would that be true?
Senator Winfield.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. As I've represented both at the hearing and in conversations with several individuals who brought that question to bear, that was a drafting issue, and subsequent to the hearing and the conversations both with Senator Osten and others, that has been corrected. Through you, Madam President.
Senator Osten.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And through you, I'd like to talk a little bit about the behavioral health assessments that are in sections 15 and 16. When originally talking about this, they were viewed as a mental health assessment. What was the reason for changing it to behavioral health assessment through you, Madam President?
Senator Winfield.
Through you, Madam President, I think that was a language change that was to more accurately reflect the way that we are now speaking about these issues. Through you, Madam President.
Senator Osten.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Do you know if Demas weighed in on this particular section to make it something that was not punitive in nature, but more trying to get people to come forward? Through you, Madam President.
Senator Winfield.
Through you, Madam President, I don't remember having, there was a lot of conversation. I don't remember having conversation directly with Demas. I believe we did reach out. I remember that during the conversations that the notion that this is not supposed to be punitive was part of how the conversation actually developed. But at this moment, I can't remember exactly whether or not they actually weighed in. I know that there was efforts to have conversation about what we should be doing here. Through you, Madam President.
Senator Osten.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And through you, on the behavioral health assessments, which will happen at no more than every 5 years, what happens with the officer who is found to not be able to work at the end of a behavioral health assessment? What is the process that that person would go through, either for treatment or for termination from the force? Through you, Madam President.
Senator Winfield.
Thank you, Madam President. And that would take us back to line 126 to start off, which is where the policy is to be created. And that was the conversation I was having a little bit earlier about the behavioral health issues. So that policy is not in place right now. What the bill does is it lays out that the policy would be created and things that should be taken into account when the policy is created. Through you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Osten.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And through you, on the behavioral health assessments, we have 2 previous laws that we passed just last year, one to encourage police officers to seek treatment, and one to make sure that we provided a modicum of protection under post-traumatic stress. Does this language in any way impact those 2 laws?
Senator Winfield.
Through you, Madam President, I don't believe that it does. As a matter of fact, the language where we talk about who would be a part of, potentially be a part of doing the assessments, we look back to the legislation we previously did to try to make sure that it mirrored what we were doing so that there would not be a conflict. Through you, Madam President.
Senator Osten.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I do believe that this section needs a little bit more massaging, if you will, because I do think that police officers will not seek the mental health treatment that we were attempting to get them to participate in with a requirement of the behavioral health assessment in these time frames, because I think that without having a process that allows them to get this treatment, there will be some fear for people coming forward. This is why we've had the problem in law enforcement and other such groups of people coming forward. So I would request that you consider really working with Demas on coming up with a robust policy on what would happen so that people understand if they come across an issue that they will be able to receive both the treatment and not lose their livelihood. Through you, Madam President.
Senator Winfield.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. And I believe that's what we are attempting to do in Section 3, where the policy would be created, but I would represent to Senator Osten that at least it is my intention, and I am very sure because it was said multiple times by not only my co-chair but the ranking members of the committee to make sure that we do everything to make sure that these officers can avail themselves of the treatments they need, and that the availing of themselves to those treatments is not something that means that there is a punitive response from the system. Through you, Madam President.
Senator Osten.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And through you, I'd like to talk a little bit about the civilian review boards. One of the things that that has been noticed is that this is really only for municipal police departments, or at least that's what it appears to be referring to now. Is that the intention of the Judiciary Committee to just have civilian review boards for municipal police departments? Through you, Madam President.
Senator Winfield.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. The intention was to clarify that municipalities can establish civilian review boards and extend the subpoena power that has been a large part of the conversation. So for purposes of this bill, the civilian review board is looked at from the perspective of a municipality.
Senator Osten.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And through you, a municipality that does not have a municipal police department but has a resident trooper with constables, those constables generally are disciplined or reflective under the resident trooper and thus handled on the state level. What is your intention with constables throughout the state? Through you, Madam President.
Senator Winfield.
Through you, Madam President, I would say that my intention here is to clarify what should have been the possibility already under law, and it's permissive language. So I have no there's nothing in this bill that mandates civilian review boards, so it's left up to the municipality to have the conversation as part of the municipality, given what fits there, whether or not they would establish a civilian review board and do all of and set forth the way in which that civilian review board operates, and then extend the subpoena power. So I, as an individual, don't have a perspective on that. I don't live in one of those municipalities.
Senator Osten.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I just need a little bit more clarity on that, Senator Winfield. What I'm really asking is, does this apply to municipalities that have resident troopers with constables underneath them, as those constables are really reflective of the state police, not reflective of the local municipality? Through you, Madam President.
Senator Winfield.
Through you, Madam President, I would have to get to the language to respond directly to that question. Sorry, I have to find the section we're in.
Senator Osten.
17. Through you, Madam President, Section 17, I believe, is the section.
When you're ready, Senator Winfield.
Thank you, Madam President. I think as it reads, the municipality would have the ability to constitute a civilian review board. Whether or not they chose to do that, I think, has something to do with the makeup of the municipality. But if the question is, would they have the ability to constitute a civilian review board for operations of reviewing the police, I believe that given the way this is constructed, they would have the ability to establish a civilian review board through their legislative body.
Senator Osten.
Thank you very much, Madam President. There is question revolving around resident troopers and constables, and so I think that whenever you're talking about this with the other members of the Judiciary Committee, that is something that needs to be further clarified so that we understand exactly what it is. I do appreciate the fact that civilian review boards are not mandatory. They are a may, not a shall, and I understand that, but I'm not certain that a civilian review board has is able to look at or hold any responsibility over a state police, which is what this form of police department is. It's a state police function, really not a local municipality function, and so I'd like to have some better understanding of that when you're going through that, through you, Madam President.
Senator Winfield.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. So I am trying to answer the specific question asked. So the municipality, the town could establish a civilian review board. What the civilian review board could do would have to do with what powers the legislative body could extend to them. So if the legislative body, which it cannot extend subpoena power over a state actor, then while they could establish it, they could not extend their power to take that kind of action through you, Madam President.
Senator Osten.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And through you, I think the language is not as clear as it might not necessarily have to be regarding constables and what umbrella they fit under. And so I would ask that as we look at this bill, as it works its way through, that this is something that we address, because many of our communities exist with a resident state trooper and constables, or just a resident state trooper. And I think that we need to understand the differences in some of our local communities, and I'd like to see us work on tightening up that language so that there's an ability to understand it better through you, Madam President.
Senator Winfield.
Thank you, Madam President. I would be happy to have that conversation and look at what we would need to do to clarify that for the senator.
Senator Osten.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And I'm going to skip over my questions on body cameras and dashboard cameras for a minute, and on talk a little bit about female staff for searches. In many districts, something that I'd like to see us correct, there are not many women to do searches. So what is the language is pretty clear that it has to be a woman that does the search. What is going to be the actual practice if there is not a woman available within, say, 30 miles to do that search through you, Madam President? That would be Section 22, I believe. That may have changed.
Senator Winfield.
Madam President, if you give me a moment to get to the language that Senator Osten is talking about, I will. If the senator could ask a question now that I actually know where she is in the bill.
Senator Osten.
I believe it's Section 22. It used to be line 1051. I'm not certain of the line item in the current bill.
Senator Winfield.
But thank you, Madam President. I was asking to restate the question, so I was clear what was being asked of me.
Senator Osten.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And through you, I believe that the language is clear that it has to be a female who searches a female. If there's not a female available, does the person not get searched? Through you, Madam President.
Senator Winfield.
That is not what the language intends. The language, as I read it, while it changed out policewoman for female law enforcement official, it has an or there, and it's or other woman assisting in a service of the warrant or by a woman designated by a judge, trial referee. So it doesn't necessarily have to be what formerly was the policewoman or currently the female law enforcement. There are ways to deal with that potential issue through you, Madam President.
Senator Osten.
Thank you very much, Madam President. But in the or, it says other females. It doesn't allow for it to be a male officer or a male law, some other. You may not have, in some sections of the state within more than 30 miles, you may not have a female that's representative of being able to do that search unless you're going to extend it to perhaps hospital staff or something or somebody else. So I just would point it out that that's something that I think that we need to be careful of. Having worked in corrections for 21 years, there were many nights that we didn't have female staff on other than the supervisor, and sometimes even then you did not have a supervisor that was able, not a female supervisor. So if you had only male staff on, the pat-down searches would have to be done by a male officer, usually too, so that there was no question on improprieties happening. I think you're trying to get to the impropriety piece of it. Is that true through you, Madam President?
Senator Winfield.
I think that would be what that section of the law would be dealing with. That would be accurate to say, yes, Madam President.
Senator Osten.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I just point out that sometimes there's just no one available. Through you, I'd like to talk a little bit about on the body cameras and dashboard cameras. It appears that we make this process a requirement of both Mohegan and Mashantucket, but they are cut out from the grant process. Do you know if that's something that was just an oversight?
Senator Winfield.
If you give me a second, I don't know where you're jumping to, so it's going to take me a moment to catch up to you. Senator Osten, if you would help me to figure out where you are, then I would be more easily. It would be easier for me to catch up to you in the bill.
Senator Osten.
Thank you very much, Madam President. It's in the grants section of the body cameras and dashboard cameras. It reflectively says municipalities, and without bringing it over to tribal nations, then it leaves them out of it. But as they are required to comply with all state laws revolving around police departments, they have effectively been left out of the process of applying for grants. And I posit that that may have been just an oversight through you, Madam President.
Senator Winfield.
Yes, Madam President, if you give me a moment to catch up and get to the language itself. Madam President, through you, I would ask Senator Osten if she reads what she's suggesting she reads because of the section of the bill that is 2069 to 2072 and it speaks about municipalities, but doesn't specifically refer to our tribes.
Senator Austin.
Thank you very much, Madam President. That would be correct.
Senator Winfield.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, in the discussions, I think that I would represent to you that it was not, from my perspective, my remembering of the discussions, purposeful to do that. And I would certainly engage, if we're putting a requirement on them, engage in the conversation of making sure that they can avail themselves as others who we've put a requirement on moving forward from today of the program.
Senator Austin.
Thank you very much, Madam President. So you and I are in agreement that this was just a clear oversight in the reality of drafting a 65 to 70 page document. This was just something that people missed in the grand scheme of things. Through you, Madam President.
Senator Winfield.
Madam President, I've been around a while. I will represent my intentions in this process. It was not my intention to do this, so from my perspective, yes, it's an oversight.
Senator Austin.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Madam President, through you, I'd like to talk a little bit about the use of force, and not as much as what some of the other people have brought up. My understanding is there is a report coming out on the use of force sometime at the end of this year, and that this section of the use of force, which to a person that I've talked to on the police officer side of this equation, have had trouble reconciling this part of the bill with actual practice. So the use of force report, when is that coming out? Through you, Madam President?
Senator Winfield.
Through you, Madam President, I don't have the date with me, so I do know it's supposed to be towards the end of the year, but I don't know what the date is. Through you, Madam President.
Senator Austin.
Thank you very much. I believe it says that there will be a use of force policy coming out by the end of December, and that in my conversations with some of the other members of the Judiciary Committee or the Judiciary leadership, they're willing to look at the language that comes out to make sure that this is completely understood. Even before this version of the bill, the one that we're talking about today, in the first version, in the letter that was sent out, it was said then that the definition needed to be comprehensive and specific so that trainers and officers would know what they were doing. This legislation does not meet that as it is today, and is leading to some significant concerns among officers that they will not be able to understand what their exact guidelines will be and what rules they should be following. I strongly suggest that this component, which has the greatest impact on what we're trying to do here, needs to be carefully looked at so that everybody understands exactly what we're expecting. And you had a lot of questions today about the use of force policy and what we would be doing in regards to de-escalation, how we would be handling that, what are the rules that someone has to follow. Is it something that if there is a subjective was changed to objective, there is confusion about this piece, and without that, it will not make people comfortable on the job to make those split-second decisions, and it will definitely put people at risk. I strongly suggest that that report that comes out at the end of the year be looked at very carefully to make sure that trainers know what they're training people for, and officers have a clear guideline on use of force. Through you, Madam President.
Senator Winfield.
Through you, Madam President, as I said earlier in the day, we will do that.
Senator Austin.
Thank you very much. That brings me to section 43, which talks about corrections. Now, corrections has use of force also, but this date is October 1st, 2020. And if we come back in September, I think that that should mirror the same effective date as the use of force policy, which is not until April of 2021. If we're going to do a use of force policy that is easily understood by police officers, it needs to be easily understood by corrections officers, and we start this before we get to the point of getting the report back. And I'm assuming that the use of force report is not only going to be effective for police as we've incorporated corrections into this bill, and if we're going to have that use of force, they need to look at both use of force within a correctional facility and use of force on the streets as a matter of practice. Through you, Madam President.
Senator Winfield.
Through you, Madam President, I will engage in that conversation. I think it depends on whether or not the use of force is the same and whether or not what we are doing here is changing the use of force. If the use of force standard in corrections remains the same, then I'm not sure that the two line up the same way. They may have the same reporting requirements, but I think it depends on what's happening with the standard itself. Through you, Madam President.
Senator Osten.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And I believe any conversation about use of force from section to section should line up together. Do you know why corrections was put in at 11 o'clock at night when the bill was brought out at 1 in the morning, as is what I have been told by multiple people? I know it was not in the original bill, and I know it was not in the original draft of this bill. So through you, why was that added in at the last minute?
Senator Winfield.
Through you, Madam President, there have been several drafts of what became the final bill. I don't know. I wasn't here on last Thursday in terms of the conversation about which part got in at which point. I do know that as the conversations developed, there was part of the conversation. I don't know the timing part of that. That's beyond my capacity to answer. Through you, Madam President.
Senator Osten.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And on the day of the informational hearing, through you, Madam President, were there correctional officers or correctional supervisors that talked about corrections and what happens within a correctional facility? Through you, Madam President.
Senator Winfield.
Through you, Madam President, I would actually at this point have to go back and look. I don't have an answer for that. Through you, Madam President.
Senator Osten.
Thank you very much, Madam President. In the true spirit of knowing the answer to a question before one is asked, I would tell you there were no people there from either the ranks of correctional officer or the ranks of correctional supervisors, because they did not show up in the first draft of the bill, and thus felt that it was not going to be something that they needed to address. And when it came out, to have it in the bill and have it voted on within 2 hours of it being put in the bill, left it to not have had those professional people, many of whom I worked side by side with, having anything to say about this part of the process at all. And so I just point that out because while this time frame has led us to not being able to follow a process, to leave a group of people, a group of professional people out of the discussion and add them in without having them have the ability to talk on it, has left a sour taste to what should be a bill that we are all willing to support and want to stand with everyone on. If this is truly something that is a community effort to fix a problem, then we need to bring all of the community aspects of it. And in this case, this group was segregated out and not allowed to be part of the process. So I think that while I understand what you're saying, there are some parts of that section that make no sense. Doesn't flow well with the actual job. And if we had brought those workers in, either in the form of a line officer or an administrator, or pulled in the commissioner, who is someone who has decades of experience in, or talked with Officer Representative Vale, who worked in the facilities, who was there that night, or made a phone call to anybody who had been in corrections, you would have had a far better product by talking with them. I don't disagree with people having a requirement to intervene in anything. But this bill reads as if the person who did not intervene would get a Class D felony, but the person who committed the act may not be even guilty of a crime. And that's how it's being interpreted by the people who actually have to do the job in a correctional facility. And I would ask that we continue to look at that section to make sure it complies with the jobs that they're doing. Through you, Madam President.
Thank you. Senator Winfield.
Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Osten.
I'm not sure that there was. Thank you, Madam President. I heard the concern. I'm not sure if there was a question. As I've noted, maybe this was a question. As I've noted, I'm willing to have a conversation about any part of the bill. Through you, Madam President.
Senator Osten.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I would, just as I have asked for other sections of this bill, that there be a commitment that this be looked at. I strongly think it should be looked at in whatever special session we come into next, because at a minimum, it should track with the other uses of force that are in this bill, so that people can weigh on that, not having something being put forward in October without that use of force report coming down. And I think that that will dramatically impact what happens here. So I would just ask for a commitment that you're willing to look at this as you have been willing to look at other things. Through you, Madam President.
Senator Winfield.
Thank you, Madam President. I believe that's what I just said, but yes, I'm willing to look at anything that anyone has an issue with in the bill. Through you, Madam President.
Senator Osten.
Thank you very much, Madam President, and I thank the Senator for all his hard work on this. I know he is very passionate about this. We all express our passion in different ways. I want to thank Representative Stastrom again for his hard work, and Senator Kissel and Representative Rabimbis, and I have no further questions for my colleague. I just have a statement that I would like to say that, and first and foremost, I strongly believe that this did not follow the correct process. I think that that has put a lot of people at odds with what should have been something we could all work on together. I will continue to say this because there is no reason for this bill not to have gone through to public safety. They could have done an informational hearing. There was no reason for this not to have gone through planning and development. If, as it is, as I believe it is, a transformative bill, it should have gone through the process that we have to make it as clear as possible and to get as many people as possible to weigh in on this. Now, where am I on this particular piece of legislation? I represent 10 towns. I've been told that we need to do this as a statewide policy and not consider those 10 towns that I represent in the rural part of Connecticut. At my house, I wouldn't get a police officer out there should I call 911 for 45 minutes. That's how far away I live from the local troop, and we only have about 3 people that are working on third shift. That's just the way it is. That's what we are used to. We could never, in my opinion, defund any more than we've already defunded our state police, because we fully have cut them over 400 officers. And I think that that has put sections of the state, like my section of the state, at risk for not understanding this process that we have gone through. And in order for us to explain to our different communities We all need to work together, and I don't believe that that's what happened here. That is my strong opinion on that. I know that this is something that needs to be done. I understand that. But I think that what we did was divide communities across the state by allowing the messaging to get away from us, by allowing people, even here today, to say that either you are anti-police or you are racist. I think that those two things have left a bad taste in our respective communities. That's why I went at 7 o'clock this morning to meet with the Norwich Police Department, because we cannot afford to lose 20% of good police officers. And that was what was going to happen, because they were afraid of the components of this bill. And if we had taken the time to go through the correct process, if we had taken the time to do that, and I'm not saying to put it off by months, I'm not saying that at all. I think we could have done it and still been here today if we had done that, and still been able to react to the changes that would have been recommended by both Public Safety and Planning and Development, along with the Judiciary Committee. And we would have been able to let people know that we were taking into consideration the concerns, the great concerns that they had, to all communities. Because I don't believe anyone here around this circle is either anti-police or racist. But we allowed ourselves to be addressed that way, and we have actually treated our colleagues that way. In both the House and the Senate, the rhetoric that has happened around this bill has not been good. It has not done the right thing for our respective communities or each other. There have been friendships that have been shattered by the way we handled this bill, and that has not been good. We need to do better when we want to do a bill like this that transformatively changes policing, because this is not just about George Floyd. What this is about is to make sure that every community has an understanding that the police departments around this community are there for each and every one of us. Each and every one of us. We need to do more to make sure that that respect is there, that we understand that. But when we don't bring that rhetoric up front and talk about it, we're not even letting our children know that this profession is an honorable profession. And it is an honorable profession. And we drive people away from coming into the profession. We've done the same thing with teachers, and we say we want to have minority teachers, but we say all the reason of education is because of poor teachers. So why would someone want to take the time to be a part of a community that is poor teaching or poor policing? Bad teachers, bad policemen. If we really want to have minority recruitment in these professions that are so necessary for all of our communities, we need to do better and not allow that language or that rhetoric to take effect and to take over the social media applications that we are all forced to participate in. I strongly suggest that we don't do this again, that we understand that we all come from different places, that we don't make casual statements that say you are this way or you are that way. As a matter of fact, one of our colleagues here today who made statements is now getting texts from other people who talked just the other night in the House about how bad they are. That's not necessary. We need to stop that, and we need to work together if we're going to get this done and understand that process is a part of it, and talking about the details of a bill is as important as talking about the emotions of a situation. The emotions are important, but the detail is also important if we want to have a good bill. And we need to remember that. And I would respectfully request that we always follow process in some fashion or form, no matter whether we have a pandemic or not. That is not an excuse for not doing the work that we need to do to get a good product. That didn't bring people together. We have divided ourselves. We have made this a political thing, not a policy thing, and it needed to be a policy thing. And I thank everybody for the hard work they did, but each and every one of us has to explain it to our constituents, and we need to know what that policy means. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Osten. Will you remark further